Well, I know I don't look like him because I'm not him. That's right. I'm your guest host for the day, Joe Messina. Always a pleasure to fill in for the pastor here on Politics in the Pulpit. And I appreciate your time with us today. Got a whole bunch of stuff we're going to talk about. But first and foremost, we're going to talk about Donald Trump's comment the other day. And I just want you to know that you got to be careful when you're watching this stuff happen out there in, media land, fake media land, or whatever. And even my friends on the right who are supporting Donald and like Donald, they're having a heartburn over a comment that he made the other day about abortion. Yeah, we're going to have a couple of real hot topics today. We're talking about abortion and transgenderism. But as far as the abortion thing goes with Donald Trump, to my friends on the right, on the far right, who scream Constitution, slam their fists down, scream about how the states need to have more rights, I believe the Constitution tells us that whatever isn't specific in the Constitution, whatever isn't specifically called out to the feds, goes to the states. So I'd love to know why you're having heartburn over the fact that he says the abortion issue needs to be taken back to the states. It needs to be given to the states the way it was meant to be from the beginning. The other comment that I have that I've always said to people on a regular basis is you cannot legislate morality. You cannot legislate people to do the right thing. It just doesn't happen. You see it, the hardcore far-left Democrats try to do that on a regular basis. They're going to pass laws to force you to do things that could be against what you stand for, be against your spiritual belief, could be against anything that you really stand for. And you can't do that. It doesn't work. You got to change the hearts and minds of people. That's what will make this thing work. But if you're going to keep slamming your fist on the table and passing laws to make it happen, I think of people. Let me be really ridiculous for a minute. There's a law against murder that stopped it, didn't it? We don't see it anymore, do we? There's a law against stealing that has stopped, hasn't it? Right? Can't steal somebody's car. Can't steal stuff from the store. So now it's not existent anymore, isn't it? I'm not going to say that the law doesn't work. It is a deterrent in areas, states, cities, counties where they're actually enforcing the law, unlike some places. But as I like to say, when it does come to abortion, when it does come to some of these laws that some people on the far right, now I'm dealing with the far right, dealing with, no, you got to make a federal law. You got to do it through the feds. You got to make it. Well, it's a bad place to be, because then when the other side has control and they do stuff like that, you start screaming. It's a state rights. It's state rights. It's state rights. States should have the right. You guys were all excited when Roe versus Wade was overturned based on the fact that the feds had no right. There was no constitutional right to it, and it wasn't called out as something the feds should deal with, and basically sent it back to the states, allow the states to make their own decision. You were all excited about that. And I got to tell you something. If you go back and listen to some of the shows I've done in the past, I said, you know what? It's still going to be a long road to deal with. Because just because you sent it back to the states, just because you overturned it, and let's get that straight too. I know I'm all over the place, but let's get that straight too. SCOTUS, the Supreme Court does not make laws. All right? It's not the law of the land because SCOTUS said back in the 70s that women have a right to an abortion. That didn't make it the law. What Congress should have done, they're useless because they never take this stuff up again, is if they really wanted to deal with the law back then, they should have taken it up and they should have passed the law for, against, however they were going to do it. But remember that the Supreme Court only render an opinion that this is unconstitutional or this is constitutional, that kind of thing. And we're in a cycle right now that our founding fathers warned us against, which was Supreme Court is basically, and some of you who love to complain about it, you've got 9 unelected officials for all intents and purposes. Everything's going to them. It was never meant to be that way. And some of our founding fathers were concerned about that. So just bear that in mind. For this is that message is for those people that are on the right, that consider themselves conservative Christians, Republicans, and you're upset with what Trump said. Do you want to go back to the states or don't you? Do you want the laws that aren't specifically or the issues that aren't specifically given to the federal government in the Constitution? Do you want us to start nitpicking and choosing and deciding? Or do you want the states to have diversity? See, I want to move to states. Remember, it's a representative government. So I want to move to cities or states or counties. I want to move to places that share my lifestyle, share my ideology. I mean, look, and again, I'm not putting these people down. So you can try to spin it that way if you want to. But I think West LA is West Hollywood, I'm sorry, not West LA. But West Hollywood is a perfect example of that. West Hollywood is an LGBTQIA plus city. The representation is mostly gay and lesbian. You don't begrudge them that from a standpoint of that's what they've chosen to represent them. Those are the elected officials they've chosen to represent them. That's the way the system was meant to work. Right? You vote in the people you want to represent you. And then today, I think we also heard that a revision of the Patriot Act or what have you, the revision of the FISA portion, where they were going to give out warrantless. I don't know why somebody put this forward, and I can't believe that conservatives, we do have a large group of conservatives that voted for this, that would allow warrantless surveillance. Now, the way it read, because I had a bunch of calls today on this, warrantless surveillance of foreign nationals. But what if that foreign national was on the phone with an American citizen? And, FISA's been so strong, so upright. The FBI, the DOJ has been so upright in getting the FISA warrants to begin with. It really doesn't matter whether it was warrant or warrantless, but this was illegal. This was unconstitutional. They were ready to fight this. If it got passed today, they would have fought it in a heartbeat. It is blatantly unconstitutional. And these are the things we should be fighting. These are the places we should be putting energy into. Okay, so when we come back, Walt Heyer is going to join me. And Walt is identified, I shouldn't say he's identified as. He was a transgender woman for 8 years. And he went, this is back in the late 40s. And he's got a great story to tell. When he comes on, he'll tell it. I'm not going to take his thunder away from him. And he talks about what led to that all the way through. And the things that he went through that led him to believe that later on in life. He went to counseling. You can get him on now. He went to counseling. And he was given the medication he needed to head in that direction. Right? He was sent in for surgery. He said after he took the surgery, and again, I'm not going to give you all the details, I'll let him tell you, there was still something missing for him. He just never felt right. And you're hearing that today. He actually detransitioned after that, probably one of the first detransitioners. But, he actually detransitioned and he couldn't get any help. Got all the help in the world on the front end, but on the back end, he couldn't get any help. So it was really kind of crazy when you know how long this has been going on and you see the kind of damage it's doing right now. And nobody wants to go see, look, God bless you parents who think you're doing the right thing. You've been told that your kids will be dead if you don't work with them, if you don't help them achieve what they want to achieve. But I behoove you, I beg you to get more information. Don't just go to sites and doctors and people who are very positive in this area. What I want you to do is go to those sites, talk to those people who aren't on the side of transitioning and ask them why. I'm not suggesting that you take the political stance. I want you to find out why. I don't know if some of you know this, but some of you who I know are already trying to figure out how they're going to write and attack me, which is, you got the right to do what you want to do. But some foreign countries now, the UK, they've decided that children will no longer routinely be prescribed puberty blockers at gender identity clinics. And it doesn't just stop there. They've also decided that the only kind of puberty blockers, because they don't have, and they go through it. The New York Times just published England limits use of puberty blocking drugs to research only. Why? Because they don't have enough information. They haven't done any clinical trials. They're seeing too much damage being done to these young people. You can't just ignore this stuff. But as I say to you, I haven't been through it. I don't know enough about it. So I bring on people that do have a clue, that have been through it. I mean, really been through it. Walt Heyer joins me right now. And Walt, I think I've known you for, over 15 years. And I want you to give the short version of what you went through. And then we're going to go through how you're helping people today deal with this.
Yeah, I was a kid, 4 years old, cross-dressing with the aid of my grandma. And so this was in 1944 for the audience. That was a long time ago. And we didn't have terms and all the words that they associate with it today. The proper term for cross-dressing a boy like my grandma did me, or if you're a parent and you're helping your son or daughter cross-dress and identifying a different gender, the proper term for it is child abuse. You don't do it. I'm 83 years old, looking back and realizing how that 2-year period where grandma cross-dressed me, and yeah, I thought it was fun. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed being fondled over. I enjoyed being, looked at as cute and wonderful and all that, but it's destructive. It destroyed my life. And so it took me 50 years to get over what grandma did. And so advice to the parents, know something about what's going on. And the fact of the matter is nobody has ever changed their gender. You can change your persona. You can do surgery on these kids. All it does is devalue them, dehumanize them, and destroy them. They don't change their gender. If you want to devalue, dehumanize, and destroy your child, that's the way to do it. And the reason why they're devalued and dehumanized is because these kids who have these hormone blockers and go through these surgical procedures will not be able to father a child if it's a boy, and if it's a girl, will not be able to bear children. This is an abortion 2.0, and it's deliberate. This is not about transitioning anybody. It's about destroying an entire generation of children, and we need to wake up. I still get the letters. Sexchangeregret.com, my website. It's been up for 13 years. Joe knows about it.
Yep.
I have had well over 2 million, probably close to 3 million people come to the website and check it out and look at the information on there. If you go there and look at the website, you will see why you should not be doing this. And there are several countries now have stopped giving children hormone blockers or encouraging them towards any transitioning or using any of these things that surgeries and others, because it's harmful. It's harmful. In fact, the lady from Finland who pioneered gender-affirming care had a headline October of last year, says it's dangerous, don't do it. Why isn't the United States stepping up and recognizing the harm that's being done?
Too much money involved. Walt, again, back to your experience, and I'm telling you, I want to tell people, you're just not one mad guy that didn't get what he was looking for, didn't work out the way he thought it was going to work out. And we're hearing only 1% of transgenders detransition, but that can't be true. With the amount of detransitioning videos and comments and letters and emails that I see, it's got to be a lot higher than that.
Well, nobody keeps track. I mean, all of the people that I've worked with, Joe, all of them, thousands, right? Not one of them have ever been counted in a group of a detransitioner, and I've got thousands. And that's the same way with the r/dtrans Reddit site. These people that are detransitioning is the term they use, and going back after they've been harmed by the surgery are not counted. There is no place to count them. There is no database. So wake up. They're just throwing a number out there to confuse you, and they're lying to you. This is harmful. And all you have to do is look up on the internet detransitioning, a detransitioner. Mm-hmm. Go to the website sexchangeregret.com or go to the higherinstitute.com or get my book, Trans Life Survivors. This is a disaster. That's why many of the countries in the UK who started it before the U.S. did now are stopping it. Sweden, Finland, the UK.
Yep.
I've forgotten.
No, several countries, more than that. And
Norway as well.
Yeah.
So, these countries are going, this is harmful. We're not going to do this to our children. And so parents, don't do this. And the schools, have now become an LGBT indoctrination center for destroying your kid. We are destroying an entire generation of young children. I don't care which side of the aisle you're on, or whether you believe in Jesus. I do believe in Jesus, but whether you believe in Jesus or not, one thing you do need to believe in: this will destroy your child.
But Walt,
that's all you need to know.
They're being told by doctors and psychologists, and they're being told, "My God, would you rather have a child that's gone through this or a dead child?" Their emotions are being played on, and who are you going to trust? I mean, if you're sitting there in a room with the expert, what do you do?
Yeah, well, part of the problem, though, is, they're being told that. But I've had parents go into one psychologist, and the psychologist says, don't do it. And the parent is encouraged by the kid to go to another psychologist, and they keep going to psychologists until they get one to agree with the kid. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that. No matter what a psychologist says, you got to know that he's lying. He's doing it. Look, you know this, Joe. I don't make money from doing this. I've been doing this for free for years. I help people for free. I don't make money off of doing this. They make tons of money. People do this work, surgical work, are making $1 million to $1.5 million a year. I make zip not of nothing. I don't care about the money. I want to make sure that we don't destroy this nation in terms of family structures built on families. Now it's built on hormones and surgery. That's nonsense.
Well, you had suffered through this. You lived as a woman for 8 years, and you kept calling your therapist and saying, "Look, I'm still miserable. I'm still this. I'm still that." And what did he tell you?
Yeah, the therapist says, "Oh, just give it more time." So, how much time do you need before it works? It doesn't work. That's the issue.
Yeah.
Now, you can fool yourself for a few years. Most of the people have regret somewhere between 5 and 15 years. I've had people have regret at 40 years. I've had 3 women at 40 years. I've had them at 30 years, 25, 20. I've had them 3 weeks after the surgery regret it.
Yeah.
Those people are never counted. You'll never see those in the headlines.
Yep.
But it happens all the time. I had a young boy whose parents took him for the pre-hormones at 15 because he said he wanted to transition. They followed it, gave him everything he wanted. They had the surgery at 18. The parents were there. They paid for it. It's all taken care of. They cut off his genitals, put breasts in him. At 19, the kid contacts me and says, "I feel like a Frankenstein monster. How do I get my life back?"
Hold
his
that.
Parents helped him do that.
Yep. Hold that thought. We're going to talk about that and the parents when we come back. You're listening to Politics of the Pulpit. Well, with Pastor Jerry Cook, but not today. It's with Joe Messina today. Not a pastor. We'll be right back. We are back. I am not Pastor Jerry Cook, thank God. He is out exercising many of his freedoms that he still has here in this country. And I am filling in for him today. I'm Joe Messina. Always a pleasure to have you with me and tune into the show. Walt Hyatt joins me. And Walt, Walt, I refer to you sometimes as my double transgender friend. And I say he went from male to female, back to male again. And back in the 40s, which is, it had to have been a whole different experience in the 40s because you didn't have the same technologies, you didn't have the same kind of surgical procedures, if you would, or expertise, as they like to say. But from a mental health standpoint, again, you were suffering before this. How much time did you go through therapy before they finally said, "Okay, yeah, you need to have the operation"?
About 5 minutes.
Oh God! Don't tell me that. So they haven't
Of
changed.
course.
They haven't changed any of that.
Look, they don't give you therapy. They don't want to know what's wrong with you. All they want to do is give you hormones and cut body parts up. This is Frankenstein time. And then the kids regret it. I've worked with people, Joe, from 10 years old to 73. All regret it. Wow. I've had people call me at 33 years old saying, I've heard you talk. I went to the gender clinic. I was going to do this. I remember you saying how they were going to treat me at the gender clinic. You were right. I got up and walked out and didn't do it because I knew they were lying to me. Everybody needs to know these are not telling the truth. They are not going to help you. They are there to harm you. Run away from a gender therapist every time.
And this seems to have exploded over the. I mean, Bill Maher was making fun of it, but it's serious, too serious to make fun of. But he talked about this explosion transgender diagnosis or whatever it's called, and
Gender dysphoria.
Gender dysphoria. And he said there was an explosion, and he's right. There's been an explosion of this over the last 5 years, 8 years.
Since 2013, when they changed the diagnostic manual from disorder to dysphoria. They changed the diagnosis from disorder to dysphoria. Dysphoria is not a disorder. Dysphoria is a symptom of a disorder, and they changed it because they didn't want people to feel bad about having a disorder. You still have a disorder, but now they call it dysphoria so that you don't feel bad about having a disorder. And when you're diagnosed with gender dysphoria, you can have hormones and you can have surgery.
Wow.
And they will never address the underlying comorbid issues that are causing you to not like who you are and want to have the surgery. Everywhere from, body dysmorphia to schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, depression, obsessive compulsive disorder. There are social adjustment disorders, addictions, internet addictions, pornography addiction. I mean, the list goes on. That gender clinics are incapable and untrained at helping your child with the issues that are causing them to ask for this procedure.
Yeah, and from what I've read, and I've done a lot of reading on this, a lot of this is, I'll say, sparked by, or what do you want to say, supported by what they see on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and other places where some of these kids, talk to my wife and other older women that I said, I noticed that this seems to be a thing where a lot of the young girls want to be boys or they're being told they're really boys who are just trapped in the wrong body. And when you talk to the women, they all say the same thing to me. I felt like I was in the wrong body. I was miserable in my body as a teenager, but that's normal. Almost every female goes through that kind of stuff, not thinking that their body is where they need to be. And they're all women today. They're fine and enjoying themselves in their gender. This is what you're seeing happen, though, isn't it? When they start going through this, instead of them being counseled that this is a normal, natural feeling that you're having as you grow, as you go through puberty.
Gender is not a feeling, and the answer is in Genesis, in the Bible. Genesis. Man, woman. That's it. That's all there is. And the LGBT is trying to invent other genders. You can't invent other genders. You are made in the womb at conception. It's unchangeable, biologically unchangeable, scientifically unchangeable, medically unchangeable. There's nothing you can do to change what happened at conception. Get it, understand it, and realize they're lying to you.
It's again, this. I'm not telling you anything new, but I realized that the parents, as you said in the last segment when we were going out, that the parents came up with the money, they facilitated this, they took the wish of the student or the child and went until they could find somebody, they could find a counselor that was willing to, prescribe the hormone blockers and the, what do you call it? The hormone blockers and the surgery.
The surgery.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't, you know what? I got to tell you something. You'll be shocked when I say this. I don't blame the doctor. I blame the parents for taking the kids there. If you took your kid to a gender clinic and signed a paper saying, go ahead and do this, the parent's responsible. Because all the doctor is doing is acting on what the parents want for their kid. And so, parents, you're the one that's responsible. If you signed a paper and allowed that child to have hormones and surgery, take responsibility for it. Because you can't continue to step back and point your finger at the doctor when you're the one that put your kid in harm's way.
Yeah, and it's all this stuff has just become so prevalent in schools and society and clubs that some of these kids, again, really don't know where to turn or what to do. Have you worked with any legislators? I know nobody wants to touch it for some reason. Have you worked with any legislators about putting some guidelines in place, some whatever it takes to protect these kids?
Hey, Joe, we have 23 states that don't do this anymore.
Well, they've passed bills. Yeah, I heard you. They've passed bills not to do it.
We're doing it. More and more states are stopping it. It isn't. The country doesn't. Every state doesn't do this.
Right.
We got 23 states that it's a criminal offense, and in some states, if you find regret up to 30 years after, you can sue the state. So that, it's not like everybody in the United States is doing this. There's 23 states that say, no, we're not doing it. We got countries not doing it. But who is actually perpetrating this? Parents.
Yeah.
They're believing the doctors and pushing them in that direction.
Or you can put your kid on a plane, send them to California, and not a problem.
Exactly.
They'll even pay for it here. A mutual acquaintance of ours, Chloe Cole, who has got the guts and the courage to go around the country. She has been threatened with her life, but she's still going there because she doesn't want kids to go through this. And that group of young people is growing now, going out. One young lady I saw, a matter of fact, if I hadn't heard her or heard her story, I would have thought that she was a young person, a young male, maybe going through some medical issues. But a lot of them complain about joint pain. She was losing her hair, which quite a few of them complain about this. There are so many side effects. There are so many issues happening with these kids once they start the hormone blockers that nobody wants to talk about. Nobody wants to put it out there. And these young people are coming forward with great courage. I think they're truly the heroes in trying to save the young people of today, don't you?
Well, there's a case where the parent was told not to do this to their child, and then the parent signed off on it with another doctor. So, there was some things with the family, and some history there, adverse childhood experiences and things that happened which always associated with this issue. So the parents in that particular case, are responsible for signing the document because, they said, well, but keep in mind, it wasn't just one doctor. One doctor said, no, don't do it. And we shopped one until we found one.
God. Again, it's the pressure. Look, I don't bow to that pressure. I know I have parents, I think I told you this once before, that I'll see out on school grounds, I'll see out at places, and they're mad at me because they're saying, why do you hate kids? Why don't you understand what these kids are going through? And I'm going, look, I can never understand and you can't either. Most people can't because most people didn't have that fight in their head over whether they were boy or girl. I'll never understand what they're going through.
Well, I know what it is. You know what it is, Joe? I got to tell you something. Seriously. The issue's not even about gender. That's where everybody loses their mind. This isn't a gender issue. This isn't that complicated. I've worked with thousands of people, and it's always something other than gender that caused it. It's a family, a broken family. It's they were abused. They were harmed. Something happened. We need to find out what happened to the child. And they just act out this because there's people waving a big flag. Come over here and get hormones and come over here and get surgery because it's a gender. It's not. It's not a gender. It's dysphoria, but it's not gender dysphoria. It's a dysphoria about something that happened. And once we back off, everybody that I talk to, and I say, this is not about gender, this is not about transitioning, this is not about becoming transgender, it's a different issue, I can help them immediately. I've done it. I've done it in like 2 or 3 days when they finally grasp the fact this is not about gender. This is where we go off the rails. If we're trying to help them with their gender, we're not going to help them because it's not about gender.
No, and this is another one of those things where I'll go back to the medical portion of this. You don't see these kind of things happening in pretty much any other part of medicine where it's an immediate diagnosis, that they don't spend quite some time in doing research like the UK, to your point. They have stopped issuing hormone blockers only for research now. That's it. So they're going to start doing research on this, and that'll take a little while to happen. And now you've got people. I'm watching the notes that are going up, and they're spewing the line. They keep talking about, so you want dead children? No, we don't want dead children. And you spoke about something the other night that I personally know someone whose daughter was heading in that direction. They were working. Mom was fighting like a tiger to keep it from happening, and fighting with the local school board to keep it from happening. And the bottom line with it was, after a while, the daughter, I'll say, saw the light, for not a better term, and now she's back to wanting to be in dresses and just be her feminine person that she is,
because she realized it wasn't about her gender. She realized what it was. That's why I've worked with kids 10, 12, 14, 15 years old, and when we finally have the conversation with them, they will say it wasn't about gender. They were doing it because their friends were doing it. Listen, let me tell you something really interesting for people to understand. I had a coach at a school tell me that kids come up to him and say, I'm afraid to not identify as a transgender. I could get beat up. They are forcing people to identify as transgender. They're not transgender. This is a social contagion. They're being bullied in many cases to identify as transgender. This is not about being transgender. This is about a whole social construct that where the schools, the school board, the teachers, and all the curriculum is leading kids down a primrose path that's going to destroy who they are and their ability to function as a male or female. We need to understand that. Parents, don't allow people to destroy the function of your girl or the function of your boy so that they can be husband and father, they can be a wife and a mother. Because if you go through this, they won't be able to have either one.
Yeah, it's funny. I made the mistake. Some people sent me some pictures of some of the surgeries that were done and what it looks like afterward and what have you. And I'm thinking, my God, some of them call themselves, a Frankenstein, and I can see why they do that.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly what they. In fact, one of the articles I wrote for the Daily Signal says, "I felt like a Frankenstein monster. Can you help me?"
Yep.
Yeah, that's what they do. That's what this is about. It's about destroying children and destroying families. And parents can stop it if they just understand that the answer is in Genesis, in the Bible. In Genesis, the only things that were made were man and woman. God didn't make anybody wrong. Some people have abnormalities, but they can be fixed without hormones and surgery.
Yeah.
So this is nonsense. If you have any gray matter in your head that's functioning properly, you'll understand that biologically and scientifically and medically, nobody can change their gender. That's all you need to know. Then you just tell them, no, you guys are nuts. You're whacked. I've been there, and I tried to do it, and I found out when I took my doctor and my therapist to court, they both admitted that they couldn't change my gender. It's not possible to do.
So what was the premise of them doing this? Why did they prescribe the drugs? Money.
The pharmaceutical companies will make from $100,000 to $300,000 per child that they get on hormone blockers and hormone therapies because you have to be on it the rest of your life.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like the corner drug dealer drugging up your kids. This is like heroin. This is gender heroin.
It is so sad to see this happen, and the ages are getting younger and younger and younger. And I'm reading the stories where my son knew he was transgender at 7. You're going, how?
Nonsense.
That's nonsense. They don't even know what color clothes go together at 7.
Joe, they can't even pick out a meal, let alone know what their gender is. And the brain, come on, parents, look it up. The brain is not fully developed until 25 to 30 years old. Period. So, I'm not telling you anything you can't look up.
Okay,
Forget
so Walter,
talking to the gender people and going to the clinics. Just look it up in the Bible and look it up as a matter of research.
There's so much information out there now on this issue. It's parents should be doing their homework.
Sex Change Regret.
Yeah.
Go there. To get my book, Trans Life Survivors. Get my book, Paper Genders.
That was the first book I got of yours, Paper Genders.
Yeah, and great book.
Yeah, when you were close by, you even signed it for me. I'm waiting because I figured about 20 years it'll be worth about $6 million, just like the first copy of Superman.
I'm still waiting for the check for the $100 signature too. But
you never got it? I don't know what to tell you. So, listen, we got to go for a quick commercial. When we come back, I'm only going to hold you over for another minute or two. I want you to tell people how they can get help, not just by going to the website, but how they can get help and if they're going through this, what they can do to stop it. Yeah, let's give them some hope. Let's give them a way for them to, because you've got some parents right now listening that are mad that I'm even talking about it. Number one, and number two is maybe some of them are going, "Oh my God, what did I do? How do I fix this? How do I make a difference here?" So let's have you back for just a couple of minutes after the break. Appreciate your time with me very much. Walt Heyer with me. He's a transgender survivor, I'll put it that way. And we'll be back in a minute. You're listening to Politics in the Pulpit here on KHTS. We are back. You're listening to Politics in the Pulpit here on KHTS, AM 1220, FM 98.1, your hometown station. And listen, if you hop onto the website, hometownstation.com, you can pull down the Hometown Station app, which would not only allow you to listen to what's going on here live, but you can pick up some of the other shows and maybe listen to the past podcasts and such. But go onto the website, hometownstation.com, where you can also sign up for alerts, whether traffic alerts, news alerts, or what have you. Check out the site. There's a lot there that you can read and get through. My guest is Walt Heyer. He identified as a transgender woman for 8 years. She went through, what was it, a minute and a half, 2 minutes of counseling, Walt, before you were given the go-ahead, the medical go-ahead.
We talked and he signed the papers, so that's what they do. They still do that today. That was in 1981. That's the way they do it all the time. There's no counseling.
Yeah. So before I get to how you can get help, we were talking about Chloe Cole during the break, and though she had a tough childhood, but it's not that much of an anomaly. She's not the only one that's been through that.
No.
So why don't you kind of give her
worked
story?
With hundreds like Chloe, and it's sad. I mean, she's suffering. And unfortunately, the parents don't understand what adverse childhood experiences are. Parents don't understand that when they hear a doctor say, they're going to commit suicide, that they don't take them. They should keep taking them to someone who opposes this until such time as they get a therapist who doesn't with it and puts the child into some kind of therapeutic process. It's usually trauma therapy or some other kind of therapy. Sometimes it's simple talk therapy, but when you identify things that happened in early childhood, such as a broken family, such as a separation that was acrimonious, all kinds of things happen, And so if parents will look up adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, and learn what they are, that's probably one of the best education tools there is about this issue. Adverse childhood experiences are called ACEs. And also, don't let your kid have a computer in their bedroom at night. There is so much garbage on these computers. The kids are getting hooked on this pornography, on porn stuff. Not only that, the trans stuff. Don't let them in there. Once they get hooked into that stuff, it destroys their brain. And so the other thing that happens is social contagion. They're doing it because their friends are doing it. Those are the three primary things: social contagion, the computer, internet, and things that happen in the household. So it's not necessarily all happening in the household. It happens in the computer, happens at school as part of the social contagion. The schools are creating this. There's TV show. I wouldn't let a kid watch a TV show with a transgender figure on it myself. And I think it's harmful for them to see this nonsense. This is evil. It's garbage. It's destructive.
There was a fellow we had on that spent 25 years studying social media and teenagers and cell phones and that kind of stuff. And he's thinking the same thing you are to a degree, saying, look, these things that kids are getting hooked and addicted on, they're doing it because they have those smartphones in their room with them. They have computers in their room with them. And that's their whole world. Whatever comes down from there that makes them feel good, that they think, they're self-diagnosing in a lot of places. It doesn't make any sense. Okay. The positive side of this: how do they get a hold of you? How do they get the information that they need? And if a parent, like I said, is just spinning around in their living room right now trying to figure out, okay, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do?
Yeah, well, they go to thehigherinstitute.com, thehigherinstitute.com, or to waltheyer.com. Okay. And look at the website. Study the information before you write me. Just look at everything in there, digest it. Read the stories. The information is there. And if you're a believer in the Lord Jesus Christ, then you should look in Genesis and read and study Genesis. The answer to all of our problems about this whole issue is in Genesis. They didn't reinvent it. The LGBT didn't reinvent Genesis. And so from a biblical standpoint, this is horrific and destructive to families. And so thehigherinstitute.com, Walt Heyer, Sex Change Regret, get the books, study them, and begin to understand this is part of what adverse childhood experiences known as ACEs And when you have a child that's had such experience, they need a trauma therapist. They don't need a gender therapist. No matter what they're telling you, they don't need a gender therapist. They never need hormone blockers. They don't need surgery. Don't let them have it.
So when the movie comes out, or when you've got a movie in the making right now, I'm sure Pastor Cook will have you back on and to discuss it and turn people to that direction. Hey, Walt, God bless you for what you're doing. And thanks.
Thank you.
I mean, you could be retired right now doing nothing, but you've taken this on, and a lot of people very much appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome.
All right.
Take care. Thank you.
Have a safe
Bye.
life. All right. So some of you now, I'm sure, are thinking that we just spent 40 minutes beating on a certain community. If that's the way you take it, then you really weren't listening to the man's heart. He deals with this every day. He deals with this on a monthly basis, right? He's dealing with adults and teenagers that have been through this. And if you take anything away from this, do the research. And don't just do the research on the side of what you believe, what you want, what you believe to be truth. Do the research on both sides, right? Do the research. Let's say you're all for this with your kids. You're going to help your child through this. Take a little while to do the research as if you wanted to fight back on this, as if you didn't want your child to do it and you want to line up the information that you need. Then after doing that, then after seeing, hearing, working with the information you have, you still think it's the right thing to do, well, at least you've done the research. But if all you do is fall in line with the mob, right? Fall in line with the group, do you really want to be that parent? And if you watch some of these detransitioning videos, and they're short, they're not long. If you watch some of these detransitioning videos, look at the pain that those kids are in. Look at the pain when they talk about the things that they can't do, and the physical pain that they have in getting out of bed in the morning, the depression that they still have. And that's not a small group of them. That's every day more and more of them are coming forward. And the majority of them will say in their speech, Mom or Mom and Dad, where were you? How did you let this happen to me? It's a pretty heavy and deep discussion today, but the bottom line with it is, these are your kids. Don't do something or help them do something that 30 years down the road they're going to regret. 20 years down the road they're going to regret. Look at the number of kids that do this at a very young age and want to transition back fairly quickly. I'll put it that way. Some of these have been through it at 17 and 18. And please don't write me or call the station and say, oh, that's a lie. They are doing that. These transition surgeries, these hormone blockers have been given to teenagers, and hormone blockers have been given to preteens. If you believe in science, as all of you yell at us about, you need to believe in the science. Well, believe in the science. Your body has to develop at a certain rate. Your body has to develop with certain chemicals and certain, muscle mass and all of that. When you put hormone blockers into these young children, it stops that from happening. How can that be healthy? Really that simple. How can it be healthy? So again, you can check him out at Walt Heyer, and it's H-E-Y-E-R, Walt Heyer, Heyer.com. For those of you who say you believe in research and you believe in science and you believe in all of that, this is the time to do it. This is the time to do it. If you have a child you think is in distress, this is it. Well, I'm Joe Messina today, your guest host in for Pastor Jerry Cook here on Politics in the Pulpit. Catch it every Wednesday here on KHTS. We're out of here.